So I'm on the goal to become a full-time artist, and people will ask me, oh, so what have you been working on? You know, how have you been going? You know, what you've been doing? I don't know if this is just true of artistic types in general, but for me, probably the question that people, well, I'd at least like them to ask is more, what have you been thinking rather than what have you been doing? I've been thinking a lot of things. I always think a lot of things. That's how my mind rolls. And the difficulty with becoming a full-time artist is it's quite a confined objective, because I think arty types or people with quite open minds, I mean, I'm just speculating here, but I'm just going to talk from my own perspective. I like to do lots of different things. I like to think about lots of different things. I like to experiment with lots of different things. And the trouble with being a full-time artist is if you're full-time creating artwork, do you have time to do all these other things that you might be interested in? Or will I have the time? This is sort of one of those things I'm sort of asking myself. Not that I want to give up the go. I still feel like, you know, at the end of the day, we've all got to survive. We've all got to work and find ways to make money. Maybe in an ideal world, we could just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, doing the things we love, and everything would just work out. But I think for a lot of us, we kind of just need that stable thing that we're doing every day, day in and day out, that we know, you know, we go, we do that thing, that's our skill, that's what we specialize in, we get paid for doing that, and then everything else is kind of a bonus. I mean, that's just generally how it's going to work for most people. But the trouble is, I mean, like this week, something I've been working on is figuring out lighting things. So for this room, which is currently using it as both a lounge and a work room, a living room and a work room, I've been trying to sort of figure out how to make it more smart. So it has lighting functionalities dotted around that I can control either through my phone or switches and things. And it all started out with this idea that I would put a coloured light bulb in the light behind me, which is currently glowing blue. And it turned out it wasn't just an RGB coloured bulb, but it turned out that it was a smart bulb. And I was like, okay, well, what does that do for me? And it had like there's this app that you can use to control the different settings on it, brightness, contrast, etc., rather than just one of these little plasticky remotes that I expected that I would be using. And then I started thinking, okay, well, maybe there's other smart things I could do. I already have a backlight behind my TV in the living room area, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I could make that into a smart light and control that through the phone or through some other independent switch as well, so that it's kind of all integrated and I don't have separate remotes lying around. Bear with me, I know this is a bit of an off topic from the art subject, but maybe I'll be able to tie it back around. Let's see. So anyway, I ended up buying these smart controllers that could control the lighting both on the TV and the lamp. And then I thought, oh, I've actually got like a unit that divides up my work area and the living room area. Like I've got two of these Kallax units that I'm storing my board games in it mostly. And I kind of thought, okay, let's see about maybe putting some light strips along there as well. So then I started looking into different light strips. Is there one where it doesn't look tacky like a 15-year-old kid's bedroom? With all these little dot LEDs everywhere. Because I like colour and I like lighting. I think it's really important in rooms, and I've kind of got a little bit more into interior design and actually watch videos about interior design in my free time. Because this is the thing, like I say, I'm an artist, specifically a comic book manga artist, if I had to define myself in a couple of words. But I'm actually quite interested in interior design and architecture, not to mention like graphic design and web design and sculpture and the rest of it. I've actually got there spinning around behind me is a heart sculpture. I didn't make it, I bought it pre-made, but I did in part paint it. It came painted, but because it was a mass-produced, badly painted thing straight out of China. It needed a professional touch. So I basically went around all the outlines and lined it and made it look more like it's more like a manga thing. So it's like a mechanical cyberpunk style heart. I was just looking for ornaments to decorate my space that weren't too childish and tacky, but also were cool and I could resonate with. Like I've said before, I don't want to go to a homeware store and buy your typical live, love, laugh plaque and stick it on the side, or just I don't know whether they normally have like a kind of ceramic duck ornament or like a cat ornament. And I like animals, and I wouldn't say no to having some kind of animal related ornament in my house. There's nothing wrong with it, but for me personally, I was trying to find something that would kind of last and didn't look too childish. So something that wasn't too bright, colourful, and something that had a bit of an edge but a bit of class to it. Anyway, maybe I've succeeded, maybe I've not. I'm happy with it, so that's all that matters. So yeah, ornaments and decorations. So then anyway, it got on to thinking about lighting. I like the idea of having more lighting. So then I thought, oh, I've actually got this TV unit that has this kind of frosted glass front. I thought I could put LEDs in that as well. And then I thought, my work area, I've got a big Wacom graphics tablet, and then I've got like a screen that sits above it that I use for reference images. And next to that, I stick my laptop on a kind of one of these Ergotron arm mounts. And I thought it might actually be a good idea to put some lighting behind that, just so that it would look cool, but also be easier on the eye. One of my ailments is eye strain. I'm going to call it eye strain, eye pain. It's something that I have to deal with on a regular basis, and at times has completely scuppered my plans for certain career choices, let's say. Long story short, I probably couldn't work a full-time job just staring at a computer. So if I was a full-time programmer that had to do at least 8 hours a day, at least 5 days a week, I couldn't do it, because at some point I'm going to get eye strain so bad that I can't physically look at a screen without being in agony. So that kind of limits me to some degree. So apparently there's a name for it when you have a backlit, like a lighting behind a screen, like a TV or a monitor. And it's supposed to help with eye strain and stuff. So I thought, okay, anything that can help. Glasses that I sometimes wear, they have like a blue light filter and they help with like reflections on screen. So that's sometimes why I have those. And I should probably be wearing them now. But my sight is fine. It's just an issue. So back to the main issue. So I'm trying to create this lighting scheme, and I want to put these lights inside my cabinets. And I thought it'd be quite an easy job. And then I realized I would need to custom make the LED strips. So I needed, basically there's 7 shelves in the unit in total. It's divided into 3 sections. The left section has 2 shelves, the middle section has 3 shelves, and the right section has 3 shelves. 2 shelves. Yeah, so I needed 7 strips. They all needed to be 55 centimeters in length. And I was trying to figure out the best way to do it, trying to avoid soldering. I'm not very experienced in soldering. I've had one solder project that, to be fair, I did complete successfully, where it was disconnecting and then reconnecting a different adapter for a laptop power supply. But I was trying to find ways to not do it. So I spent ages looking into this whole lighting setup, the things you can do. You can go pretty deep with it, the sort of projects that you can do. I tried to avoid too much YouTube, like YouTubers watching YouTubers but lighting projects together. That's the sort of thing that I could get into and just spend months enjoying. But I wanted to actually do something rather than just consume things passively. So it was really just trying to find the answers of how I can solve this problem of setting these lights up. Long story short, I had some old LED strips, some RGB LEDs, coloured lighting, and I managed to cut them up. I found some connectors that were solderless. They didn't work, so then I had to resort to breaking out the soldering iron. And in the end, it took the best part of a day, but I put together this lighting setup so that I can now have the the TV unit lit up with colour lights of my choice that can match the light up there or the lights that I've actually got overhead. That's another thing. I installed these overhead coloured lights as well. So yeah, I'm going full whack with this. I've even ordered like a switch for the wall, so I can kind of swap that out, and that can activate the different lighting setups. You can buy these switches that basically, rather than just, you know, on and off, you can have like a 4-gang or 4 separate switches that control the different lighting things, and you can either click them on and then double click them off, or hold them for 2 seconds, and then that changes a different scene, a different kind of color scheme, or however you set your lighting up to work. The possibilities are endless with it. It's actually quite exciting. So anyway, I guess this is just the trouble of kind of having this kind of sort of, you know, it sounds a bit pretentious maybe, but this creative mind, this mind that wants to work on all these different projects and try out different ideas, and it's difficult to think that to be a full-time anything, especially an artist, because it does take so much work. You can't necessarily just do a 9 to 5. You might have to work longer because it's such a difficult job to kind of thrive in, I guess. But the thought of kind of being stuck in one thing would be quite difficult, because there's these other projects that I want to do, whether it's you know, an interior design project or an animation project, or it might be designing. It could be anything, like a logo or a website. You know, at the minute I'm designing a card game. It's a, you know, like a board game type card game thing. I'm halfway through writing several books. I don't think I'm at a position where I really want to discuss them, but you know, you sort of write them and you kind of know where they're going. And there's one that I'm probably about 40,000 words through, another where I'm probably several thousand words through. It's kind of more of a short story. I mean, I might as well quickly talk about them if anyone's interested. If not, well, why would anyone listen to me just rant on about random stuff anyway? But yeah, so basically I've got one story that is about, it's kind of like a superhero type thing, but doesn't have superheroes. It just has people that have been trained to defend an oncoming threat to the planet Earth in a kind of very weird way. There's a kind of mystery behind it. Something I've noticed about stories that I generally like are when you just don't really know what's kind of going on, like kind of, yeah, these kind of mystery things. Weird setups, weird scenarios where you don't really know how it's going to play out. Something a bit unusual, like a weird premise. I'm thinking of like TV series that are like that, like Alice in Borderlands on Netflix, or Severance. These kind of mysterious, weird shows where it's like, oh, this is an interesting idea. How is that going to work out? There was an anime series I watched fairly recently called Heavenly Delusion that was, again, kind of weird, has stuff going on where you kind of know it's going to tie together eventually, but it doesn't, and you want to see how it's going to play out. So with these, it sounds so tacky and so childish, superheroes, but with these future saviors of the planet, they are an unlikely group who are kind of trained to protect the planet against their will under unusual circumstances. And it's the unusual circumstances which is going to be the main bulk of the story. It's one of these things like, you've ever seen these films like Cube, or is it called The Room? Where it's Netflix one where they have that kind of big, giant table that comes down with food. It's like a prison, and then people have to eat the food depending on what level they're at. I think it's called The Room. There's another one, I think it was called The Interview, where there was a bunch of, like, I think it was a British film where there was like I don't know, 10 people in a room. They were given an hour and they had to try and figure out how to pass this interview. And they were just given like blank sheets of paper and a pen, and that was it. And they're trying to figure out, well, what's the catch? What's the trick? And it's kind of a bit of a sort of psychological mind game. Yeah, so yeah, kind of being in just a room or a setting. I've kind of set this this kind of first story in that kind of, it's kind of like a prison where you're trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening. Ultimately, it's revealed that the characters are in a kind of training simulation, but in a kind of weird way. It kind of gets there quite gradually, so it's not really revealed at the start. Anyway, it's exciting to me. It's the sort of story that I wish existed, because I'm quite picky with stories. I find a lot of stories a bit childish, a bit naive. I want something that's got a bit of sort of philosophical, psychological depth to it, and a lot of mystery. And that's what I'm after, and that's what I'm trying to create. So that's one of them. The other one is about it's about a mysterious stranger that turns up to fight monsters. I see this one more of as like a shonen manga sort of series. And the monsters are kind of being generated through the dreams of the friend of one of the characters. So he's kind of asleep in a coma, and these manifestations are coming out of his dreams and attacking the world. And it has a lot of, I've kind of just got to the crux, the end point, but it's not revealed. You don't know that is what's happening as you sort of progress through the story. It seems like monsters are appearing. A mysterious stranger has the ability to actually defeat them and kill them. It's more of a sort of modern day fantasy thing, I guess, sort of hero journey. And you sort of like, where does this stranger come from? What are these monsters? Let's figure this out. And that's how the story goes until we realise that it is the child in the coma who's the culprit. And there's a reason for that as well. It's exciting for me, like I say, but these are personal things. I have no intention of ever seriously publishing them. I mean, I would if someone came along and said, "Oh, tell me more about your story. Show me where you've got so far, and if I like it, I will pay you money and we'll publish it." But I'm aware of the fact that I'm not a writer. I'm doing this for as a hobby. It's not necessary to be seen by anyone. Although I wouldn't say no if it ever did become a thing. I think the first one would make a good film, and the second one would make a good sort of graphic novel or manga series. But how many people have thought that? Like, I would imagine, especially if you're even having an inkling of some kind of creativity in your mind, at some point you thought, I want to write a book. And there's probably a few people that have written the first chapter of a book, and that's as far as they've got. Like, I would imagine most people, so over 50% of all people, have thought at some point, I want to write a book. I think it's just an intrinsic part of being a human being. We want to communicate our ideas in some way and what inspires us. And if you're that kind of creative type that's really inspired by ideas and things in the world, like you want to show that some way. And that's the reason I want to become an artist, really. Well, a full-time one anyway, to explore my ideas and to put things out into the world, create something that didn't exist, and for other people to enjoy it, resonate with it, and for it to be a mutual thing where I can provide something for someone and they can fund the process of me creating it in the first place. But yeah, so anyway, I think people, they want to write a book. Most people want to write a book, and out of that 50+%, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's 80% of all people have at some point thought about writing a book. There's probably maybe 50% that seriously thought about writing a book and started like going over how, like the characters and how they might interact, or what would be the general plot on how that would develop. And yeah, there's probably, I would imagine 40 to 50% of people that really start to think about it. And then maybe like 10 to 20% of people have actually sat down to write about it or wrote some notes about how it's going to develop. And then maybe like 1% of people actually go on to write a whole chapter. And then maybe 0.5% or less go on to write several chapters, like I've done with my stories. And then even less go on to actually finish a book, finish a story, and have it finished. And even less still get it published, either self-published or more rare these days, especially, is to get an actual established publishing company to publish the book and to some degree market it. I mean, I'm talking about fiction, just stories that people want to tell rather than, biographies or guidebooks or that kind of thing. But there's still millions of people out there, even in that 0 point something percent of all people, that actually want, have actually created and finished a book and possibly even published it. I mean, a lot of books have been published, and that's something that I always think about. Like, so many books have been published, but when you look at, for example, cinema listings, obviously a lot of books get translated into the screen, whether it's films or TV series, and there is now so much to choose from, and there must be so many good books. I'm always surprised that, like, it must be quite difficult to not. I mean, I guess the hard part is finding the good quality stories, the good quality books that bring something original to the table, because a lot of books that are translated to films, you think it's going to be like a bit of a no-brainer. You've got such good source material. How could it lose? And sometimes, still, despite that, the producers manage to completely mess up the production, or it just maybe it wasn't so good. Maybe people thought, oh, you know what, we're not gonna find a really amazing book. We're just gonna get some writers in, obviously professional, high quality, high profile writers in to write a new story, and we're going to turn that into a series. The trouble with that is you don't know if it's going to be any good until you've actually made the series or the film. Whereas I think it's probably better generally to test these things in the same way you have in Japan. You have the manga that then gets translated into the anime, which perhaps even gets later translated into live action if it's really popular. But at least when an anime, not sometimes it's sort of, you do get the stuff that's written just for the sort of one-shot animations rather than coming off the back of a manga series. But with a manga series, it's been tried, tested, it's popular, and because it's so popular, that is why it then gets to sort of anime status. So you kind of know that it's going to be at least fairly decent. I think generally the quality of anime is quite high, and I think that's why it, in recent times, seems to have overtaken a lot of, not all, there's still some really good Western cartoons, but in comparison with what's coming out, there's just a lot less sort of Western stuff, because a lot of that is cartoons that have been written just kind of as they are. They're not directly being translated from an existing story necessarily. So yeah, books, stories, so many to choose from. And who am I to think I could ever add to the millions of books that are out there published already? It'd be lovely. It'd be great if, like I said, someone would come along, just some millionaire, and just give me the funds to finish the project or whatever. But it's never going to happen. Sometimes you just have to be realistic with these things. And so, yeah, forget being an interior designer or a LED lighting specialist or a published author in the sense of storybooks, and focus on the art, because you can only pick one. You can only be an expert at one thing. It must be quite difficult as well if you're like quite sporty and kind of athletic, and you have to pick a sport, and you might go into long jump or 100-meter sprinting, and maybe you'd be really good at basketball, or you'd be really good at javelin, or you'd be maybe you'd be really good at high jump. Maybe you'd be better at high jump than long jump. I don't know. So there's all these things. You kind of have to choose one. You can't necessarily be the best at everything, and you have to specialize. And I think that's when life gets quite hard, because there's this idea that, you know, you can have the sort of jack of all trades that can do a little bit of everything. And there are jobs for people like that, like handymen that come in and need to fix things. And generally, if you know how to fix a few, 10 different things, when there's a new problem, you can kind of transfer that skill over to the new problem. It's quite easy to sort that out and fix it, the rest of it. So, and within the kind of artistic space, that does exist as well. You can be one of these freelancers, kind of like myself, where, I mentioned in the last video having produced this, or the video before, about the unicorns, Hungarian unicorns book. So, okay, I did I've done how to draw books, how to draw manga books. I've done adult colouring books for different people, normally kind of kids. Yeah. But yeah, slightly demographics, different demographics. I've taught one-to-one with different students. Like, I think the youngest was about 9 years old and the oldest was in his 60s, and people in between. And I think you can do that. You can do teaching, you can do live shows, you can sell your artwork, sell it online, create YouTube videos or whatever it is. Like, there's different ways to do things, and maybe doing a little bit of everything is the way forward for some people. And for others, I think just specialising. But you've really got to have that kind of dedication and focus to that one thing. You just have this project and you just want to do that one project all the time. When I think of these, I've mentioned before, like the manga anime series One Piece, the author Oda who created it. I think how boring must it have been to have just stuck to that one series and have developed that over decades. There's another, or the manga that I'm reading at the moment, Berserk. Still reading it halfway through. I'm on chapter 200 and something. For anyone that hasn't read it, it's probably the best adult-orientated manga series that you can read. So I recommend it highly. Yeah, I was going to say that would make a good live-action series or a good anime series, but then the recent anime series adaptation they tried to make of it, they somehow still messed it up, even despite the source material being so good. And even having already made an anime series, and that existed, that was all right, that was okay. I would recommend the first ever Berserk anime series. And you had that to work with, and you still, I can't understand how you can mess these things up, but some companies do. And I'm sure it's down to a lot of time constraints and, trying to meet deadlines and the rest of it. But is that an excuse? Like, I've watched a few documentaries sort of in recent years about films mainly in the 80s, like the mid 80s, when there was just so many really good films coming out. I think it was 1984? It was just so many good films were coming out, like iconic films. And when you find out like the making ofs behind them, the documentaries, like the deadlines that were so tight, or the money, how all the money ran out, but the films were still made. It just kind of goes to show that you can still make a good film even when you're suffering from like budget constraints or harsh deadlines. There are workarounds, creative workarounds, where you can actually make things work. So anyway, tangents aside, well, I'm already 10 tangents deep. I'm trying trying to claw it back to original points. But yeah, so I'm watching Berserk, and I think that is working quite well, because I mean, at the moment we've kind of gone from kind of a sort of well, the last story arc was very kind of, it was, you know, monsters and demons and stuff, but quite serious. Whereas this one, they've now introduced like a little witch girl and another fairy, and it's a bit more storybook fantasy with trolls and ogres and things like that, but still done in quite a dark way. If you've read those chapters, you'll know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think that's a way of kind of mixing up, doing something a bit different, kind of trying to make it a little bit more sort of fairy tale story, and not necessarily just stick to this more sort of semi-serious, sort of more sort of semi-serious, just monsters, and being a bit more kind of, I don't know, there was definitely a different vibe in the last arc, I would say. But anyway, so yeah, what do you do when you've got so many of different kind of things that keep piquing your interest, and you want to kind of delve into them and think about them, and you know that every time you investigate these different things, it's taking time away from perhaps the main goal, or the main, you know, you're going off on little side quests, and the main quest, you know, is getting kind of left behind. Sometimes it's good to do that, I think. Sometimes maybe the reason why the main quest is getting left behind is because the main quest is getting a bit boring and stale, and you need to kind of go out into the world, find other things to then kind of develop your mind and your ideas, so that when you come back to the main sort of quest, you have a different take on it. So who knows? But yeah, that's just some things I've been doing, some things I've been thinking about. This idea of trying to sort of split your time amongst different interests, and perhaps it being a thing that a lot of artists struggle with. So I guess in other news, it's just something I've been thinking about recently is just video content in general, like these videos that I've started doing. Because at first it was going to just be me talking. I quite like the idea of just having a graphic, or maybe just a time lapse and me ranting over the top of it. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to bother filming myself, because I mean, at the time I didn't have a very good camera. I used to use my bad quality little webcam that I would just attach to the top of my laptop, and it wasn't great. And then the last few videos I've put out have been shot on my phone, and it's not the latest or greatest phone, and it's using like a front-facing camera as well, rather than the better rear cameras. But then at least I can see if I'm actually in the shot, or whether you know, I end up filming an entire video and it turns out that I'm not even in it. But also I bought these little microphone things that I can just attach to my clothes, and it means I can just talk. I could be anywhere. I could walk off into the other room and come back, and I could just be talking, and it would still pick it up. Which kind of made me think, oh, okay, well, maybe I could even film content being kind of on the road or outside or doing something else. But I'm still in a position where, even though I'm kind of considering slightly improving things as I go, and I think everyone should do this generally. This is what I'm talking about with my rooms and my spaces. I'm trying to add these extra lights to optimize and improve things, basically. I just like tweaking things, making things better. Because why not? It's a fun activity, and it just makes everything better than it was before. So even with these videos, every time I'm sort of trying a little thing different, maybe, you know, thinking, oh, that doesn't work, or maybe that does work, or not at this point for anyone's benefit, just to kind of see what I think. Trouble is with these videos, I'm not going to get any feedback. I'm not going to get 10 comments from people that say, I like what you've done there, I like the lighting, or I think the sound quality's fine, don't worry about it, or actually the sound quality needs a bit of improvement, or I think it would be better if you just got your big face out of shot and had a picture of you drawing, because we're here because we found your previous artwork and we want to see more artwork, and we don't want to hear you rant about your stupid little stories and, you know, rant about your lighting fixtures and soldering projects. But I guess this isn't for those people. This is for anyone in the world who wants to just see some crazy guy try to become an artist but get distracted by other things. Yeah. So anyway, trying a few different things, trying different lights just to see what works. Because it's there now. I have the coloured bulbs and the coloured lighting set. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I didn't really do it for the videos. I didn't, you know, a lot of people were sort of buying LED lighting strips and things so that it can improve their video qualities that they put out on YouTube or whatever. But I'm not really doing it for that. I just did it because I want, when I'm chilling out in the evening, I want to stick some nice warm red glowy lights on and it just feel a bit more cozy, stuff like that. But while it's there, let's double up and try something else. So yeah, these last sort of 5 videos or so, I've kind of switched things up. I've changed the thumbnail for the videos. Rather than just text, it's got my big fat face on the front, and which is really weird because I'm like a really self-conscious person and I feel really weird about having my face there. I feel weird about even uploading this kind of stuff. It's a weird mixture where you've got thoughts and ideas and it's good to offload them and maybe even put them out in the world, because as I've said before, even if I suck at this, even if I'm not very good at communicating, even if I go blah, 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 and get my words tied up and make these mistakes, at least other people can look at me and say, well, I feel better about myself because at least I'm not him. At least I'm not this guy who's, you know, sitting in his living room talking about nothing for currently 40 minutes or so. So, yeah, so you can't, in a way, you can't lose. But then at the same time, I like the idea of trying to improve things and testing things out. So like I say, I'm trying to experiment a little bit more with like a different style of thumbnail or a different kind of lighting, and yeah, going to see where it goes. And I might just put like a time lapse video of some artwork that I've either worked on in the past or am working on now, just to remind people that I'm not just a rando on the internet talking about stuff, but you know, not that I'm like some big shot pro artist, but I'm at least a decent level where I think I can actually fulfill this goal of going full time, or at least this is like, you know, I want to give it my best shot before I'm kind of forced to flip burgers at McDonald's or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, I've done plenty of not necessarily burgers, but tossing pizzas and kneading pizza dough. So I know what it's like to have those kind of jobs where they're kind of considered a bit menial. For me personally, I found certain jobs they were as bad as you might think. But it's a job at the end of the day. You've got to do what you've got to do. So yeah, I want to try and mix it up and add some things. And I thought, obviously, this is one of these things where I'm just saying random, it's not really random, but I'm saying just thoughts that are just coming off the top of my head. And I'm not alone in doing this. I actually watched a video not too long ago. There was a guy pretty much in the same situation as me, does some drawing, does some doodling at the same time, just talks about things he's been doing, little games he's been playing, or and I think people like checking in with that, seeing you know, what's Joe been up to, what's Sam doing these days, you know, and they can just check in and say, oh yeah, they're still doing a little, they're sketching and just talking about their life. And I think to some people it can be quite comforting. I don't think I'm the sort of person that anyone would find much comfort from, but even though most people I'm sure would find me to some degree quite repellent, I think hopefully there are some people that are like, okay, I get this guy, I resonate with him. He's trying to do stuff that I'm trying to do, or thinking stuff that I'm thinking, or yeah. There's always going to be someone out there that thinks, okay, yeah. Like, even if someone is a complete and utter weirdo, there'll be some other complete and utter weirdo out there like, wow, we're kindred spirits. This is great. I thought I was the only one. If you can provide that service of not being the only one, then you might as well just continue doing what you're doing, providing you can withstand the people that are no doubt going to criticize you for your shortcomings. But I always think there probably isn't many people that could criticize me worse than I probably criticize myself. So that's just another thing about me. So trying to get back on track with art talk now. This was another thing I thought, like, because I'm still trying to find what I'm trying to do here with this sort of video series. But I kind of thought, okay, Ben, let's think about this. You've got your sort of, how many am I, about 15 or 16 videos deep in this kind of becoming an artist mini series, and I think probably like 60 something videos on my YouTube channel. And as I've explained in a previous video, these days you would potentially need hundreds to finally kind of take off and become one of these channels that has some kind of significance, you know, like thousands of subscribers and people that regularly tune in. So I know I don't expect great things, but I am kind of thinking, well, what am I doing here? Like, is there maybe some way I should, is there something I should talk about in order to sort of scale the metrics, in order to increase viewers or view counts? I don't know. There's a part of me that just doesn't care. I don't care about having millions of views just for the sake of views. Again, I've said before, it's like YouTube, not well, it could be YouTube, but like Instagram. I'm thinking Instagram likes, or likes on any social media thing. It's like, okay, you've liked the thing that I've put out. I don't really care about. I don't really, you know, it's good that you liked it. Sometimes I guess it's good if it's someone, because you never know if people genuinely like it or they're just liking to support you. But if they kind of know you and they genuinely like your stuff, and fair enough. For me personally, if someone says, I like your artwork and I like it for this reason, that's what would make me happy. Especially if it's the reason that I also like it. Sometimes it's not so good when, like, there's times when I've done like sort of semi-realistic artwork, like pencil drawings or something, just literally copying photos. You know, and there's obviously an art to copying photos, and or even tracing. You know, like everyone says, "Oh, you trace that, you're shit." But it depends. If the tracing is really good, that takes some skill. Obviously, most tracings are going to be like tracing an outline, and it kind of looked like a weird stencily outline mess. It's not going to. Things might be in the right place, you know, if you're tracing the outline and the general proportions of a face, but you can't really trace shading quite so well. So you're going to have to fill that in. I kind of think, sort of coming from the sort of tattoo side of things, the amount of tracing that goes on in tattoos, and the amount of tattooists that have millions of subscribers, but they're tracers. They're all tracers, and no one cares. No one ever says to these tattoo artists, "Oh, you trace that, you're shit." They'll only do it with, I don't know, it's more like comics and character art and anime stuff. There's just some weird thing where, not necessarily weird, because I know there's a lot of people that are just tracing someone else's work and then saying, I did this. And it's like, well, yeah, you did it, but you didn't say how you did it. You didn't say that you traced someone else's picture. And, you know, and you're, you know, people don't want to feel like you're misleading them by showing something that wasn't entirely an original thing that you did. And fair enough. But But yeah, anyway, I'm going off on tangents again. My main point is I've done sort of realistic, semi-realistic pencil drawings. It's not my thing. I don't specialise in it. But like I say, I've got this kind of, I have these little urges sometimes to just do something creative that isn't in my typical lane, and I'm sort of going outside of it to try something, and I do it, and then people say, "Wow, that is amazing! That's so great! It looks really lifelike. You should do more like that." And you know, it would be horrible if that then went viral. That little thing that you did just as a little hobby, that was the thing that people latched onto. You know, you just did it one time as a fun little exercise, and that's the thing that everybody loves. But the thing that you've been working at constantly for decades, no one cares. I mean, I kind of know what that's like in some ways. I had that. I remember having that ages ago on, it was like a Deviant Art upload post. Another side tangent here. I don't use Deviant Art now because it is, I don't know. They just decided to sell out, stick a load of AI on there, and it's just a mess. Oh, I mean, I could probably talk about this more, but yeah, it's not. I don't know why they call it Deviant Art. They should just call it. They should call it like the AI art galleries or something. Or they should have created a separate website for it, because every legitimate artist up until recent years that was using that site has basically had a massive, great steaming shit done on top of them, and told that, well, this is just how it is now. You're just one of many. You know, we're going to promote you just as much as you know, prompters that have got an AI image generator to create something off the back of a prompt. And I always say, like, AI art looks fucking amazing, and it's unbelievable what it can do. The level of the standard of it, it's great. It's, in a way, it's great, but there's just a lot of things wrong with it. And obviously, for artists, art is more than just the end result. You know, there's a process behind it. There's a whole struggle of doing this thing over years and years and years. No, like there's no one who's really killing it with their art, who's just turned up one day having never drawn a picture, and they're just automatically technically amazing. It just, you know, it's taken years for someone to get there and go through that struggle. And as artists, we all know what it's like. We all know, even the ones that aren't that great, even the ones that, you know, if there's levels of, you know, starting level of number one, and then the top tier pros that just are inundated with work and stuff that are at level 10. You know, even if you're at like a level 2 or a 3, you've still worked your ass off just to get to level 3, and you know what that's like, and you're still part of this kind of collective community of artists that understand what it is to draw and what it is to try and improve, especially if you're trying to sort of be professional or sell your work, or, you know, it's not just a little thing, you know, a very insular individual hobby that you're just doing just for you or just for your family or friends or whatever. So there's this whole experience that goes with creating art that AI prompters just have no idea exists. Some do. I'm sure there's quite a few people. In fact, a lot of the early adopters of AI art were people that tried to draw, couldn't really figure it out, so went to AI. And some people that can draw and have just thought, you know, fuck this, I can create the same stuff in, you know, a matter of hours of adjusting prompts compared to 100 hours of creating the final result. But yeah, that's quite a funny thing. When you look through a Deviant Art profile and you see these, you know, badly drawn pictures that progressively get quite good, and then suddenly they go from sort of level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to like level 10, where obviously level 10 is the AI prompting images that they're uploading. But yeah, so Deviant Art, there you go, another tangent. I don't use it anymore. I think it's a travesty of a website. I don't know any legit artists that use it, or, I mean, I would like to find legit artists that aren't absolutely disgusted by that website. And if you are, an artist that uses that website and you're not disgusted by it and you enjoy it and you think it's good that AI gets prominently featured on their front pages and has destroyed the careers of all the or aspiring art careers of all the amateur or professional artists alike, you know, explain to me why that's a good thing. And I've actually seen arguments for this. People say, oh, you know, get with the times, you know, you're obsolete now, fuck you. You know, the same way people said to, you know, coal miners, oh, fuck you, we've got nuclear energy now, or, you know, we've got these other things. It's like, well, that's still their job. That's still a thing that maybe that's all they know. Maybe that's all they've trained for. And up until that point, you were reliant on the coal that they mined to get the energy that you wanted to power your appliances and all that kind of stuff. And without these coal miners, you would be in a far worse position than you are now. And it's the same with artists, really. Like AI art wouldn't exist without the artists having created the training data for the AIs to work with to begin with. So yeah, it's just something to think about. But yeah, I mean, there's an argument that, okay, well, it's an end of an era, and there are going to be people that keep bitching and whining about it, saying, oh, and what am I going to do? You know, I thought I was going to be an artist, and now I can't because AI has come along and ruined it all for me, and oh, I don't know what to do. And yeah, it can be quite tiresome when it's just like, oh, well, find a new career then, get on with it. I get that perspective, but that's a bit harsh, a bit cold for people that have completely lost their livelihood effectively overnight or within the space of a few years. Because I just wonder, would those people say, you know, would you say that if, you know, if they were, you know, lorry drivers, maybe they're really good at driving, that's one thing that they're good at, and then within the space of a couple of years we replace all lorries with automated self-driving lorries, and then actual drivers aren't needed. Maybe lorry driving was the one thing you're good at. Well, maybe you've just got lots of different skills, and lucky you can just transfer into something else. But yeah, I guess my point is people should be a bit more sympathetic towards people that have had their livelihoods ripped out from underneath them. And these are people that don't even profit from this. The people that profit are the tech bros, you know, the Silicon Valley, you know, trust fund kids that have come along with, you know, mum and dad's money and said, I want to make an AI app. And they said, okay, here you go. Here's a few $1 million, knock yourself out. And, you know, they've got rich off the back of it. And everyone else that just wanted to create stuff because it's an innate part of being a human being, they just get shafted. So, yeah, as you can tell, I'm not really a fan of AI. But as much as I'm not a fan of it, I still enjoy looking at it. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, I haven't decided whether I think it's like if I could like wave a magic wand and just it not exist, would the world be better for it? Overall, it's hard to say, like, because we're still at the early phase of AI, because we don't know whether, you know, we'll end up being I don't know, we might end up being integrated into some weird advanced AI interface in the distant future or the near future even, and perhaps without the AI image generation algorithms, we wouldn't have kind of come to a place that is better for us than would otherwise be. I don't know, but I kind of feel like generally probably would have been better to not have it. I mean, certainly just from my limited perspective, just over the last few years of AI having been invented, I've just seen my sales just steadily decrease. And now I have to state that my artwork wasn't created with AI. That wasn't even a question. Before it was just like, oh yeah, cool artwork. But now it's like, was it created with AI? And yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, you can still tell if the hands are weird and wonky, and you know, there's still a few tells. Sometimes there isn't. And I don't even mind people working with AI. You know, if it's speeding up your workflow and it's just helping you with idea generation, or if you can take an AI generated thing, an idea, or like people do even before AIs, people like in the film and game industry would do photo bashing, where they would just grab a photo, kind of paint over the top of it and add to it, and no one really cared that much about photo bashing. There were maybe a couple of elitists that thought, oh no, you should actually be painting all of that from scratch, and using your own perspective points, and starting with grids and guidelines and drawing and then painting over the top of it. The industry just changed to a point where it's like, well, we haven't got time for that. We need to get this stuff done, and we need to get it quickly. We need to get these concepts out of here. By the end of the day, if I don't do it, I'm going to lose my job, so I have to do it. And I suppose if AI is used in that way, where you're just photo bashing on the top of AI, it just is what it is, isn't it? It's like, I guess I can't really criticize people for just taking advantage of the technology that's in front of them. Obviously, the problem is the people that are getting duped into thinking what they're looking at or buying is the legit creation of a human being, and also the kind of problem that you have when you're not an artist and you've kind of shortcutted your way there, and it's just unfair. It's unfair that you haven't gone through the blood, sweat, and tears to get to a half decent level with your artwork, and you sort of cheated. I think people don't like the idea of that. And then I guess it's as well, it's just this delusion that some people are like, oh, look at me, I'm an artist. I wrote a sentence worth of prompt and a thing came out, and now I'm an artist. And I guess the existing community of artists, like I explained earlier, they aren't resonating with this new community of prompters who think that they're part of that art community. It's like, no, you're not like us. We're here because we had ideas that we wanted to turn into reality, and we developed a skill set that could do that. And that's developing that skill set has some kind of intrinsic value to us, because it's kind of taught us perseverance, and there's something kind of human about it. It teaches you just how to overcome struggles and deal with stress and disappointment when things aren't going right, and it kind of develops character, and it creates a type of person that wouldn't exist otherwise. Like if you just have someone who can just click a finger and they have the thing, easy access to the thing, then you're going to be a different type of human being compared to the person that has had to really try to get hold of whatever it is. And I guess it's a weird argument. Like, yeah, it's like, at what point do you just admit that there's easier ways to do things, and we need to get with the times, and that the internet, for example, is there. If you need to research facts, just look it up on Google. There's no need to go to a library and feel like some kind of library information snob, where you're like, well, actually, I read a book, so I know more than you. Because maybe it's fine just to get the information straight from Google, and it's just information. It doesn't matter where you get it from. Who knows? But maybe there is something to be said for reading books. That's something for people to argue about another time. But just on the topic of art, though, I thought, even though I've done a lot of ranting about, I wanted to have a quick look at something. This was my kind of emergency questions sort of thing. If I couldn't think of anything to talk about. The trouble is I talk about too much and go off on these weird tangents, which to some degree all ties back. And I think, well, to go off on another tangent, I think the idea will be to say stuff, just put it out there in this kind of raw format, and then perhaps talking about optimizing videos and maybe trying to build an audience in some way, then put out my thoughts again, but in a much smaller, manageable format. So rather than listen to a guy just rant about everything from AI art to how the Berserk manga has evolved during the recent chapter arcs that I happen to have been reading. You know, it's completely unrelated. I think if there was just a bit more of a direct, you know, I mean, I don't like these kind of, it's a difficult one. I don't like these top 10 tips to, or top 10 things to consider when creating artwork. And then it's, you know, quite a condensed short thing. But even though I don't really like that format, if that is what people would find useful, maybe I need to consider creating something like that. I feel like what I would like to do really is just try and create some kind of conversation starter, and it would be good to have interactions with other people about, well, what do they think? You know, I'll say a load of stuff, put it out there, and they can say, yeah, I agree with that. I'm not sure about that. Here's my take on AI art. Or actually, I know you said the Berserk manga was really great. I thought it was a load of shit. I don't know why everyone rates it so highly. Or, yes, I too like mysterious fictional stories. Have you seen, and here are my recommendations. In fact, that'd be good, because then, yeah, you can actually get something positive. Because that's what things should be. These kind of, like, to have a positive conversation where you can talk about stuff, and then someone could come back and say, well, yes, I actually know a bit more about that thing, and let me tell you how it actually is, and then you can learn from it. I don't know. Like I say, I like the idea of having more of a conversation with an audience, I guess, but you've got to get the audience first, and perhaps therefore I need to consider, well, how am I going to do that? And we will see. But it's a weird thing with the audience thing, because I feel like, you know, people would say, oh, well, Ben, you've sold thousands of your art prints. You know, who are you selling to? Who's your target audience? Who is your audience of buyers? So apparently I have an audience already, but I don't think those buyers, well, firstly, they don't know I exist, you know, because at this stage I'm a YouTube channel with a few hundred subscribers. And out of those, maybe only 1 or 2 would actually make it to this point in the video. So I don't really have an actual audience. I just have people in the past who have at one point took us a passing interest in what I was doing and then moved on to the next thing. But yeah, building an audience of like-minded people, that would be something. But yeah, I wanted to just, I suppose I'm going to throw this in at the end just as a thing to show that this is a talk about stuff related to art, and to give some ammunition to build the conversation. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a conversation here. So this might not happen now, but maybe if I can produce another 10 or 100 or 1,000 videos, eventually someone will see this video and be like, okay, I've got something that I want to contribute to this, what you asked at the end there, or what you mentioned. And what I mentioned is just this thread, or what I'm going to mention is this Reddit thread. What's the most common art question that you get asked? And this could probably just be, you know, like, this should just be a video on its own. And this is probably the sort of thing that people would want to watch for 10 minutes while they're, you know, having their snack break, and would actually probably then reply to. And, you know, that would then build, you know, trigger the algorithm, and, you know, help with all that stuff. So I'm just going to read out a few of them, just because I am curious to what people have said, and I want to see if I agree with their comments. So yeah, this is a Reddit post. It just popped up, and I thought I would go through it while I'm here. So first one is, did you draw that? Yeah, that's quite funny, especially when you've literally just finished drawing it, and then people see you, you know, so you put the pen nib on, or put the pencil to the side of the bit of paper. Did you draw that? It's like, it's a funny question. Or who taught you? And then, I need a favour. Yeah, I remember that. I get this one a lot. Firstly, it's like, did you draw that? and then I need you to do a thing for me. So it's firstly establishing, are you genuinely competent? And if so, I want to exploit that. That's basically what people are saying. And people want to exploit it, fair enough. And you feel like, oh, well, that's fine, because we can come to an agreement whereby you give something to me, I give something to you. You can give me some money, to make it worth my time. And I'm happy to do you a favour. But it's surprising with artists just how many times you get asked, oh, did you draw that? That's really good. You couldn't do one for me, could you? Or my daughter would really like one of those. Do you think you could just go away for like 5 minutes and create this amazing work of art that obviously didn't take 5 minutes, and just give it to me for free? It's weird because you wouldn't even ask someone you wouldn't go into a shop and just say, oh, so you have this pack of chewing gum for sale for 20 pence. Can I have it? You wouldn't say that, but you would say to someone, oh, can I maybe have 40 hours of your hard labour and expertise to do this thing for me, and can I have it for free, please? It's funny, I remember being in school and I would get asked that quite a lot, especially mostly by people who weren't even my friends. They were just kids from like some other class or something. They're like, oh, that's really good. Oh, you can draw me one. It's like, no, I'm not even drawing these for my friends. Like, I might do, but I'm not going to be drawing it for like a stranger. So what else we got? Did you do it from imagination? And they say this one is so hard to explain to the non-artists. So, did you do it from imagination? Yeah, that was another one I used to get at school all the time. It was like, did you copy this? Did you trace this? So, yeah. Did you sketch that? People want to know, was it a made-up thing, or was it actually based on an existing thing? How do you keep your hand so steady? Yeah. If ever anyone has watched me ink things, or just seen the results of me ink an image, creating the smooth outlines for something, it's always like, oh, I could never do that. My hand would be shaking. But as I've explained in my How to Draw books, there is an art to inking, which is, basically you just draw from the wrist or from the elbow, and then you can create these like arcs where you're kind of, you basically lock your hands down, and then don't kind of move your fingers as you're doing things. I mean, you can even create little mini arcs with your fingers, but it's all about just creating sort of set paths based on the trajectory of your joints, basically, and that is how you can draw things without getting wobbles and things. Why don't you draw this? My mother, and then this person says, my mother keeps sending me random pictures to draw, lol. Yeah, it's funny how many people see that you're an artist of some type. In my case, okay, I draw anime characters, or I draw tattoo inspired designs, or tattoos themselves. And then you'll get someone, it's normally like a mother or grandmother or someone, an elderly relative, say, oh, I like this thing that's completely nothing to do with the style of artwork you produce. Have you thought about maybe producing something like this thing that I like? And yeah, I think people probably get that one quite a lot. How long did it take? How long did it take? Now this is, I actually quite like that question, or especially early on when you're trying to become somewhat proficient or professional, because it gives you a guide. If you're an existing artist and you ask another artist, how long did it take? It gives you just a guide on another professional's kind of output and consistency, and you kind of want to know what is achievable within a certain time frame. So I don't mind the how long did that take question. I quite like asking people how long it took. And I'm always shocked because most people, because I'm so slow and perfectionist, artwork takes me 30 hours. I take a whole week to create a single character drawing, and then that's not typical. Most people would do something quite similar in probably the space of about 10 hours. I've just got this weird thing. It was the same when I was working as a tattoo artist. I knew other tattoo artists that could do exactly the same as what I'd just done in the space of maybe at half the time, or a third, maybe even a third of the time. And it's just how I work. Maybe because I'm not I've always said I was never naturally talented, and I'm not super efficient or competent, maybe. So I kind of make up with it by just taking a bit more time, trying to figure out what I'm doing. So things always take me a bit more time. What brush do you use, or what tool do you use? Yep, very common. That's one that so far I think that's probably the most common one, especially now that I get. If I put up anything, if I put up a time lapse of me creating some artwork, I mean, to me, kind of being in the art thing for quite a few years, it seems quite obvious to me that I'm using, say, Photoshop, because all the menus around the time lapse and the artwork I'm creating are that of Photoshop and not Clip Studio or Procreate or something. But perhaps if you're not familiar with different digital tools, you would ask that. But I think people just think, oh, you're doing a good drawing, and therefore, if I use the tool that you're using, I too can do a good drawing, which most artists realise is pretty much bullshit. I mean, tools, they probably make like 5% difference to any artwork you can do. So if you're progressing to be an artist, I think if you're at a level 2 out of 10, and if you want to double your effectiveness, you just kind of need to create better artwork. If you want to get to a 4 out of 10, you've got to create artwork that's twice as good, because all the tools in the world isn't even going to get you up to a 3 out of 10. So that's the trouble with the tool question. But sometimes you do want to know. Like, for example, it took me years to find a black pen that I like to use for inking things. I mean, most of the artwork I do isn't even traditional, it's just digital. But when I do ink, I want a pen that isn't going to dry out quickly, that has a good flow of ink in it, and doesn't just like pool on the paper. And actually finding it's surprising how many pens, maybe 50, 60 pens, before I actually found a selection of pens that are actually quite good. And there's ones that are good, but then maybe they dry up quite quickly, and I mean, the question really should be, why do you use those tools, rather than what tools do you use? Or at least that should be the follow-up. No one ever asks the follow-up. They run up to you and they say, what tools do you use? And you're like, well, to be honest, most of the time I use Photoshop. They're like, yeah, thanks, bye. And that's that. So what else we got? Did you trace that? How do you blend like that? What kind of pens do you use? Do you just draw from memory? Can you design me a tattoo? What do you use for highlights? Yep, I've heard all of those. This one is, can you do X being the subject matter medium unrelated to your main medium, subject and style? For example, I do portraits, and I get asked to do anime tattoos. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. If someone said, obviously I'm interested in so many different things. If someone said, oh, I see you do tattoo style artwork. Do you do interior design? Do you do kitchen design? I'd be like, actually, I do know a little bit of CAD, and I could design you an interior or a kitchen. Now I can just flex on people. Right, did you copy that, or did you draw it yourself? And that one says, boils my piss, lol. Yeah, I think I mean, most of these are just like the questions you get at school. Or well, it's either that, or it's people that don't know you're an artist. Like, you just meet friends and they say, oh, I've been working, and I say to people, oh, this is something I've been working on. and they're like, and they'll look at it and then they'll say, oh, it's actually quite good. I'll be like, well, been working on how? Is it like, you know, you've been colouring it in? Was it something that you saw in a colouring book and you've working on it? What are you printing it out and you're putting this picture that you found in a frame? And I'm like, no, I drew it. I drew it from scratch. There was an empty sheet of paper or a blank digital canvas that didn't exist, and now it has a thing on it, and a thing that, you know, like I say, may not be the best thing in the world, but it's pretty good. And people are a bit confused by that sometimes if they don't, like I say, know that I'm an artist. Someone says, I wish they would ask questions. I tend to get statements like, my daughter / son / grandchild / partner / sister / brother-in-law / uncle or brother-in-law's uncle likes to draw. They're really good. I've been painting for decades. I've had solo exhibitions, so I can't be that bad. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny at like live shows when people come up to my table, like proud parents, and say, "Oh, my son or daughter likes to draw." They can't wait to get their phone out to show me, and I don't mind looking at their artwork, and yeah, but people think, "Oh, you're an artist, you can draw." It's weird. It's weird because obviously I'm exhibiting in an art space, like in an artist's alley at a comic convention or something. So there's maybe 200 other artists that this person could have gone to, and probably like more child-friendly artwork. But they, for some reason, thought, oh yeah, the guy who sort of is drawing this kind of edgy anime and tattoo influence stuff, I'll go over to him and show him my 8-year-old daughter's, you know, fairy drawing or whatever. I always find that a bit weird, but I sound like I'm criticising. I mean, it's quite nice that they feel inspired enough to share that kind of stuff. But yeah, someone then replied, I think they just want to try and relate to you in some way, which is probably true. Other than did you draw that, I suppose another would be, how do you do that? Use reference, basic shapes. Yeah. Can you send me a picture of that? Yeah, that's a funny one. Because yeah, I'm just thinking, yeah, I've had that. I've had people say, can you send a picture of stuff? They've even gone to my website and then emailed me to say, can you send me a picture of that picture I could just download off of your website? But because it just seems like it's more effort to go to your email app or email program and then write an email to the author to say, can you send me the picture of that thing that I could have just taken anyway? You know, I just took a screenshot of it or whatever. And a lot of people will never say, oh, can you send me a picture of that because I want to use it in some project or whatever. No, they never talk about the use of it. Just want to use it for something. What else we got? What's your medium? So again, what tools do you use? People don't ask me questions ever. All the guys hitting on my models. Who is she? I don't do much life drawing, especially with models that guys would want to hit on. Normally it's like an overweight man or something in the life drawing classes that I've been to. I need to find out where these good life drawing classes are. Right, is that actually yours? That's a drawing, or did you draw that? After I ask if they want to see what I've been working on, no, it's someone else's. I was just kidding. I'm a lino cut artist. I mostly carve with a X-Acto blade, which is, to anyone outside of America, a scalpel. People often, they didn't write that, I'm just, as an aside. People often seem stunned that I use a blade instead of gouging everything. Yeah. I mean, I've done a couple of lino cuts and I used a gouging tool. I suppose, yeah, nothing wrong with. I mean, I don't know enough about scalpels to to really know how they fare with cutting into lino. Most of my friends are artists, though they tend to be more specific, usually anatomy stuff. Hey, this torso feels weird. Can you try fixing it? So I've had people say, here you go, I fixed your artwork to me. And also times when it's like, can you fix my artwork, Ben? So a bit of both. Where'd you learn to do that? Do they teach you how to do this? How long have you been drawing? My offspring loves art. What should she do to get to that level? Yeah. I mean, that's a question I get quite often. If anyone's looking for advice, like I say, it'll be a parent or something. You know, my son or daughter wants to get into this kind of stuff. Where should they start? It's kind of a weird question, because normally I give the answer that they want, but probably not the answer that they need, which is, you know, to maybe start with some YouTube tutorials or how to draw a book, study the basics, study perspective, color, anatomy. You know, it's just an answer, and you know, people smile, nod, and walk away. And I think, are they going to do any of that? Are they going to practice their basics? So that's one thing. But really, I'm sort of thinking now, okay, so your 7-year-old enjoys drawing and wants to do the thing that I'm doing. Firstly, I'm not doing this full time right now, so I probably shouldn't be the one giving advice, because this isn't a full-time career for me. I'm trying to make it there. Maybe you should come back when I've figured that part out. But mainly, it's like I want to say, well, to be honest, if I'm struggling to compete with the likes of the AI prompters right now, then I think in 10 years' time, when your son or daughter is properly considering a career or something, it's there may not be a career to do, but I don't think a parent really wants to hear that. I think they just cry in front of me, and then I wouldn't know what to do. Who is that? Every time I draw some character. Yeah, one I get, they haven't asked yet. Normally when people point at my artwork and they'll say, oh, is that, I don't know, is that Sakura from that anime, or is that, I don't know why I said Sakura, you know, oh, is that Mizuki? Is that Aiko? You know, it's just some character from some series or something I've never heard of or seen. And they say, oh, you know who that is? That looks like, yeah, so insert some Japanese, usually female character's name. And this is the trouble with anime and manga in general. A lot of the female characters are just interchangeable, big-eyed, small mouth, different coloured hair. So I can forgive that to some degree. What else we got? Honestly, a lot of the time, since I paint abstract, someone will ask, what is it? Yeah, I mean, I think this can be quite annoying for people that do abstract art. I've done some sort of semi-abstract stuff, kind of like this tattoo, just weird abstracty shapes. I didn't design this tattoo, but I've drawn stuff like it before. And a lot of people, especially non-open types, they want something to make obvious, immediate sense to them. Like if I draw something like this that has kind of robotic, mechanical things going on, people will think, oh, okay, I can see, I want to see that there's, I want to see that there are, I want to see what it is. What is it? Is it a piston, or is it an engine? Is it some kind of device that exists in the real world? And if it doesn't quite make sense, or people, if it's sort of semi-abstract, like an organic metal H.R. Geiger style thing where it's kind of sort of looks like something, but it isn't, people seem to get a bit, or some people can get a bit freaked out by it. This person says, do you use from adults, and can you teach me from kids? So yeah, I guess it's what tools do you use, and can you teach me? Yeah, can you teach me is something I got asked a lot at school. I think if you can draw or play a musical instrument, all your peers at school are going to say, oh, can you teach me? Can you teach me? Can you paint my dog? Can you paint my husband? Can you paint my kid? And then someone replying, yes, for a lot of money I can. But like I say, no one wants to pay money. They just like what you do and they want it for free 90+% of the time, unfortunately. And I don't know, I think the trouble is it happens so often that then by the time you've been doing the art thing for a decade or more, you do start to sound a bit bitter about it because you're just fed up of just constantly being asked to give your services away for free. You just don't get this if you're a plumber. No one ever calls up a plumber and says, oh, you know, my friend had some plumbing work done by you and I saw what you did underneath their kitchen counter top and I would like some plumbing work done. Can you do it for free? It just would never happen, but it's a weird thing with art. Especially weird if you're quite good at it, because it's like, oh, okay, obviously you're at that level where you're either a professional or could be. Fair enough if you're just an amateur and your stuff's not that good, but then if it wasn't very good, people wouldn't ask for it. So yeah, will you draw me or my dog? Yeah, that's sort of the vanity question. Oh, draw a picture of me. It's kind of egocentric question about wanting them. I think that's another thing with this sort of AI prompting. I think there's sites like Midjourney or whatever that will create this AI artwork for people, but I think a lot of the time people don't just want to prompt and create artwork, but they actually just want them as a superhero or them as an AI version of whatever. People are very obsessed with themselves. Well, it's just an observation about all people, really. What else we got? This one. Why are they naked? They aren't. I'm literally just trying to get the forms down. So yeah, I think that's when you're figuring out how to draw without having the clothing interfere. Someone replied, yep, to be fair, artists do draw a lot of naked folk. What else we got? Could you teach me? Yep. Had that one. How did you do that? Then we got, can you teach me? Could you make me one of those? Make me one of those for free. You know, I'll give you a shout out on my social media. So yeah, you invest. I always sound so bitter when I say this, but it happens. It's going to happen to anyone, any artist or anyone that can do good things, but mainly artwork, because this is just an art specific thing. You get good at it, and people then want it for free, and they in return might, if they give you anything or say they'll give you anything at all, will do the whole I'll give you exposure, which I'll give you a shout out on social media. And as I've said before, even if I post on my own social media, say if I post on Instagram where I've got tens of thousands of followers, I might only get 50 likes and no one will react to it. Now, if I post a picture saying, oh, I've got a 30% sale at my website, most of my own followers don't care. And the people that generally seem to like and comment on things are just my friends and stuff. And some of them have gone on to buy a few bits, like a few of my books or whatever, to give to their family or whatever, which is quite cool. But they're not going to buy anything. So I don't think Joe Blogs with his 20 Instagram followers giving me a shout out is really going to do much for my sort of publicity ranking. I'm really impressed with your artistic style. But would you be able to create something similar for me? Yeah. When I draw any figure, is that you? Yeah, I haven't had that one for a while, but yeah, when you just draw something and people always say, is that you? Trouble is, a lot of the time I use myself for reference. There's a couple of things I've done where I think if you know me well enough, you're like, yeah, that's obviously you. But sometimes it's like, especially if I draw, the heroic anime character, the big, beefy, muscly guy, and it's like, okay, I have a little bit of muscle, but I certainly don't have that, and I don't want you thinking that you think that that's what I look like. I'm some big hero guy in my mind, and that's why I'm drawing it. It's just a bit cringe. The most question I get from people is, did you make this? So, or next one, how do you make it look realistic? Did you really make that? So normally it's just disbelief by the sound of these comments. People just cannot believe it. Where'd you get your ideas? And do you do pet portraits? Yeah, the pet portraits. Like I think that's probably the most common commission request I think I've ever had. And I don't think I've ever actually done a pet portrait. I mean, it's kind of funny because I know people that do pet portraits and people that aren't, it's just it's a little side hustle thing. They're not artists. They have a day job, but they did at one point do an oil painting of a family pet, and then from just that one oil painting that they did just as a sort of hobby, they've then gone on to do 100 pet portrait commissions that, they're okay. And as long as the customer's happy, fair enough. But actually, I could do a pet portrait, but no one, I guess no one, well, I don't have a portfolio of it. That's the trouble. And I don't sell myself as a pet portrait artist. So even when I've had been asked that, people haven't followed up on it, they hadn't followed up on it. It's quite funny. I created one of these Kara social media accounts. Basically, when everyone was, suggesting we have us artists have a mass exodus from Instagram because it's no longer favouring us and the algorithm doesn't help us. So let's go to this new social media art app called Kara. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just create a profile on this platform and kind of try and get in there somewhat early just to see what happens. And I created my profile. Not a lot happened. It's one of these things like all social medias where you post and you feel like no one cares. No one's really using it. No one's really liking stuff, or no one's really seeing your stuff. It is very much just artists desperate to promote their art, and they don't care about your art or your projects because they're doing their own thing, with the exception of the sort of the 1%er club, those people that are just so phenomenally good that, if I'm going to like and follow anyone on here, it's going to be those. But anyway, I had a commission request from someone. I was posting up a lot of my sort of anime inspired artwork, and they said, "Oh, would you do pet portraits?" And I said yes, and they say, "Oh, do you accept PayPal or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." Or, how does it work? We sort of had a little talk about it, and then they said, "Great, I'd like to commission you then." And then I'm like, "Okay, so you're going to have to send me the image of what this pet that you want. Do you want to email me the image and I can have a look?" And they never emailed me. And I think, did I follow it up? I can't remember. But obviously they didn't want it that much, or they found someone else. And fair enough, like I'm not a pet portrait artist, and I only agreed to do it because I thought I haven't taken a commission in ages, and I haven't done a pet portrait. And like I say, I sometimes get these inklings to try new things, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to try something new because I think I would actually like to do a pet portrait, and I bet it would be, I wouldn't necessarily say amazing, but I think it would be really good. I think I could do a really good pet portrait. It would definitely be better than some of the people that I see do pet portraits as a career, as their thing, and constantly inundated with work from being a pet portrait artist. I think I could do something better than some of them. How can you teach me? Can you teach me how to colour like you? Can you draw? Insert game character name too. And then the last one, can you draw me/for me? So, and then sure, it'll cost. So yeah, it's all that just sort of neediness and demanding of artists. And like I say, it then creates this sort of, I don't know if I'd call it resentment, but just this sort of mild annoyance from artists when they talk about this, like, oh yeah, here we go again, you want some artwork and you're not willing to pay for it. And I think the non-artists will think, well, you're being a bit harsh. They only asked if you could draw them a picture. But yeah, once you've been asked, can you draw this for me for free, about 400 times, it just gets to the point where you're like, no. And I think especially when there's either two things going on with artists. You've either got the hobbyist types, or anyway, this is true of all artists. The reason you got into drawing in the first place is because you wanted to create the kinds of things that you like. You saw other artwork, other pictures, other things in the world, and you wanted to represent that, create it for yourself. You wanted to realize your own ideas. So firstly, you don't really want to draw someone else's family member or something, because that's not your idea. You wouldn't choose to do it. Even if you're a portrait artist, you'd probably rather, I don't know, do portraits of your own family or people you find look interesting, or even self-portraits. So people don't really want, artists don't really want to generally draw other people's stuff anyway. But even if they did, and obviously professionals do, they're going to want paying for it. So yeah, already, yeah, and people just don't know this. Already you're sort of asking someone to do something they don't want to do. It's, you know, just because they have drawn a picture of something or painted a picture, whatever, it doesn't mean that they just paint pictures of whatever and they don't care about it. They just find a random subject and draw it because they love it. And you might as well just suggest your thing, because that's all these artists do. They just like drawing random things. So why not just, it's 50-50 win-win, really. You can get to draw me, this is coming from the art, I was going to say the art buyer, the art asker. They would say, oh, you get to draw me, I give you a subject matter and you get to draw because you love it so much. I don't know, maybe there are artists out there that want a subject matter and don't know what to do. I mean, fair enough. I mean, I've had times before where I wanted to create something, I just didn't know what, and you kind of sit down in front of a blank sheet of paper and you're trying to figure it out, and you kind of want some inspiration, but I don't think it's ever going to come from someone who doesn't really know you that well, or even if they do, asking you to draw them or something that they care about without paying you or whatever. So, okay, so there we go. Got some art Q&As and questions answered. Most common art questions that people get asked. Just thought that was interesting. I thought maybe I'll feature a few more of those, just talk about them, just because any other artists out there can relate and we can all go, oh yeah, I've had that before. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.